Hi everyone, Coach Lori here, and this is another session of conversations with courageous cancer warriors. And today, I have to tell you, I am so excited to be with this powerhouse. Um, I'm going to let her introduce herself because she is so amazing and is so multifaceted that I feel I wouldn't even do it justice. I would like to welcome Angela Marshall. Angela, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Lori. Hello to all of the courageous survivors and warriors. It is indeed an honor. As you mentioned, I am Angela Marshall, and I am known for a woman on a mission, a global mission, one, to help others to live vicariously through themselves, but then also just to share my trials, my triumphs, my struggles, my successes with everyone so that they can start living a more fulfilled life, which is another step towards freedom.
Absolutely. And, if one thing, it's what I call the silver lining. One thing about facing your own mortality is just that you realize what's important and where you want your life to go.
Yeah.
So you've had experience with that through being a caregiver for your mother. Would
Yes.
you talk to a little bit about us?
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having me on. As a previous caregiver, I understand just the overwhelming position that most of us are in, will go through. And I think some people kind of shudder or they shake when I say that it took me being bedside by my mother who was dying in order to really face my own life so that I could live. Now, those that don't that don't know my mother was a very vibrant, agile, just fierce and feisty woman who lived her life every single day, no matter what, through the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, the valleys. She lived an amazing life. Now, her daughter, on the other hand, is the one who supposedly had this extravagant life, being once married to a former NFL National Football League player, and then just other advantages that society would say that I've had during my lifetime. So of course you look at me and you say, oh yeah, she's having a dynamic life and she's living her best. She's living her blessed life, but I was not. So as I sat bedside with my mother, well, actually, let me take it a step further. When my mother was diagnosed in April of 2012 with cervical cancer, this is a woman who was still going to work. She was a medical documentation specialist at this, amazing hospital here in Augusta, Georgia, for almost 30 years. And she refused to allow me to take her to chemo and radiation. She did it herself, and she went to work. So from April 2012 to November of 2012, this is what my cancer warrior did. It was like without fail, she'd go to the grocery store. She did not want me to, enable her or handicap her in any way. And she was very, very strong throughout it all. Now, of course, me hearing the news, it actually shocked me, it discouraged me, it disappointed me a whole lot more than it did for her. So that's one of the reasons why after the cervical cancer eventually metastasized to her brain, and that was, slowly like deteriorating her from from June of 2013 to August of 2013, as she lie in the bed at this acute facility that I had her in, she just refused to be down. She refused to be out. She refused to be, in a space that would, most of us would just curl up, cry, and just, oh, my life is over. But until she took her last breath, my cancer warrior, my mother, Linda Stone, was phenomenal. And I like to say that I believe during that time, like when people ask me, well, what, because at the time I was actually working in corporate and some other things that I was kind of going through. And when they asked me, well, what propelled you to write your books, to step out, to tell your story, to just share your journey with so many others, and I tell them it was that experience with my mother as I sat bedside with her that gave me the courage to then step out. And like I have my own business now, which as a creative consultant writer. And I'm a public speaker, I'm a published author, a best-selling author, I'm a mentor. It's just so many things that such a bleak and dark and dismal and grim situation afforded me to be able to see what I needed to be doing.
Yeah. And what's fascinating the most is that how she kept that positive mindset,
Yes.
right? I mean, it must have been something to see, right? Because like you said, we've all had dark days with, small minutia of everyday living, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you are, you know, going toward the end of your life and you're still just vibrant and positive. I mean, that must have been like, that definitely impacted you, and it seems it
Absolutely.
impacted you in a positive way, right? Like, so
Absolutely.
so would you be willing to provide an example? You talked about so much how you transformed your life. What was one of those defining moments for you where you're like, enough?
Well, the main thing was, for so many years, I had been holding on to just feelings of abandonment, of rejection, of bitterness for a lot of situations in my life, with, whether it was, other people committing the acts against me, or me doing it just out of being juvenile or immature and not knowing. And after watching my mom go through what she went through every single day from June 2013 to August 2013, which was 2 months, 3 months,
Mhm.
I just decided I wanted to be free. I wanted to be free from bitterness. I wanted to be free from anger. I wanted to be free from doubt, from fear, from negativity. I mean, the list just goes on and on. I guess the main thing that I wanted to be free from was myself. Because the thing about it is that everything starts in your mind. It's all mental. And then even just how I would see myself, my reflection, just over the years, whether it was society telling me how I was supposed to look, dress, be, act, do, have, and all of that stuff, I just started peeling after watching my mom and after taking care of all of her affairs, when she eventually died in August of 2013. I started peeling off layers. I started unmasking. I started unchaining. And then it, became this phenomenal, dynamic woman. And I can say that, I don't look at it as being egotistical. I don't look at it as being vain at all, because we pump and we pour so much into other people, as far as, you're so dynamic, you're so this and you're so that, and we forget about our shells. We forget about ourselves every single day. But that's one of the things that my mom, Linda Stone, never did. She always lived her life very fulfilled and very free, and that was my strongest takeaway. And when I had the aha moment, like, no more, I'm done. I'm just bringing on a lot of hurt. I'm heaping on a lot of just unnecessary, damage to myself, when I should be living an amazing life, which is what I was created to do.
I absolutely love that. Now, did you develop any practices, like daily practices? Like, people would be like, well, how did you do it?
Yes, very good question, and thank you for that. Meditation and affirmations. So meditation has taken me over the last 4 years to places that mentally and emotionally and spiritually that I did not think I could attain. I'm talking about, like, you're looking at a person who once suffered from road rage, from service being too slow rage, like everything just bothered me to the 1000%. But after I started on this journey to just really be more in tune with myself, be more connected, and then also seeing people how I see myself, which means I'm imperfect, I'm flawed, I make mistakes, I have bad days, I have down days. Once I started shifting, my eyes were open. So meditation, being able to do that the first thing in the morning, like, I don't move, I don't reach for my phone, I don't care about emails, I don't care about, whether or not I can actually move my fingers and toes. But the moment I'm conscious, I'm aware, my eyes open, I start just in all of my gratefulness, just being grateful, being thankful. And then I start with my affirmations as far as what I am. I'm healthy, I'm whole, I'm well, I'm strong, I'm blessed, I'm kind, I'm polite, I'm humble. And I just kind of run down each one of those things constantly, because meditation isn't just about sitting quietly for 15, 30 minutes, an hour, with your eyes closed and your palms, in a receiving mode. I think that's a part of it. And that's for me, that's my preference. But also throughout the days, I would just in my own mental time, into my own mental space, in my journals, I was constantly writing affirmations. I'm free, I'm wise, I'm blessed, I'm loved. And those are all the things that help me to become a better me, thanks to my cancer warrior. And I can't say her name enough, Linda Stone.
Oh, Linda, I am, you know, she has been a blessing for so many of us because you're here sharing your story. And as a person who believes in meditation, I journal every day. I, and the affirmations, so important. And what I share with my clients is that I'm like, just get started, do 5 minutes and then grow from there. And it's truly, truly life changing. There's some magic in all of that. Like, that is just amazing.
There's amazing transformation in just one sentence. If you were to write one sentence every day, whatever that is, I am thankful, I'm grateful, I'm pretty, I'm smart, I'm wise, whatever,
Mhm.
you will start transitioning. You will start shifting into that. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely correct. Most people just think you have to do all of this stuff, whether it's a physical fitness regimen, you got to do it for 30 minutes, an hour, 45. That will be great when you have the time to graduate to do more in those particular areas. But the thing is, do something.
Yes, absolutely. And, part of, for the people who may not have tried it before or kind of feel like, a little bit silly, right? Because at first it's hard to get used to. But ultimately what you're doing is you're setting your intention for the day, like who you want to be for the world, like how do you want to show up? You said it beautifully, of like looking through other people's eyes as to how you are. And it's truly that, like, it's humbling yourself and recognizing that you're human and you're flawed. But
Absolutely.
that's a blessing too, right? Like when you could kind of start making fun of yourself for how you've been programmed and how you respond to things, like you truly are free.
Yep, absolutely. It's all about retrain your brain.
Exactly.
And one of the things that came to me as I was on this journey, and which is really my biggest topic when people request me to speak, live vicariously through yourself. And that's one of the things that my mother, that her death, her journey, her transition with cancer, that's what it taught me. And I mean, I once upon a time I would have been ashamed or felt a little funny saying like her death gave me life, because that's what we're programmed to believe. Ooh, don't talk about death, don't talk about change, don't talk about the bright side or the upside of things. And it's totally the opposite. I truly believe that because I have been taught that words, and I think you can see that sign behind me,
Mhm.
words, the heart and mind obey them.
Yeah.
So whatever it is that you want to bring more of, you want to attract more of, you want to attach more of course you have to talk about it. You have to bring those things to the forefront, obviously with as much positivity as you can. So, there were moments when I would grieve, I would mourn. Now, with that being said, for the caregivers, which I'm sure that they already know this, when you're in the presence of your loved one, of course you don't want low energy, because at that time they need you to be strong. But then there are times when I would go home, I would tag team. I had an amazing team with my aunt, my little cousins, family members, my son, my daughter, that would help me throughout the process with my mother, just to give me a break, because I wanted around the clock presence there with my mother. And there were times I would feel in such despair. I mean, I would just bawl like a baby, because there was there was such a disconnect and detachment from time to time growing up, that I did not have my mom. And once we had a talk and we were able to just kind of air certain things out, and just come clean with a lot of stuff, I felt robbed. It was like, well, now that I really like my mom,
Right.
I always loved her, but I was thinking, now that I really like my mom, and now she's transitioned, like she's leaving, which I know, we're all going to die at some point. However, like I was literally holding her hand, and in her room, this room, I called it the room of death, day in and day out, just knowing that at any moment she was going to take her last breath.
Yeah.
So I think that from that standpoint, just being able as a caregiver to show your emotions, show your grief, be okay with not being okay, but don't let it drown or drain you. And I think that's for all of us, no matter what, whether you're a caregiver or not. I just think that there's a lot of issues and a lot of situations in life where, yeah, if you allow it, it will not only knock you down, but knock you out.
Yeah.
And the key is to be knocked down, but not knocked out.
Absolutely. And, it's one of those things that I've been on both sides. I've been a cancer warrior and I've also been a caregiver, and they overlapped at the same time too, which is just like very difficult to deal with. But, you kind of want to always go there, like you said, with a positive attitude and like just be like the ray of light. But there are times where, it's really true. You need to clear out,
Mhm.
whether it's with that person and the people in your life, in order to just create a new space
Yes,
that you can really develop a relationship again.
that's right.
And it's
They calling it now, the new word or the latest trend is unpack. You have to,
oh
yeah, you have to learn how to unpack,
oh
because
I
because
like
you,
that.
right, because they say we carry baggage. So you
Yeah,
have to learn how to unpack so that you can stop carrying that baggage.
absolutely. And it's so important, because just like you realizing living in the now and staying positive, if you're bringing all that baggage with you're not changing much, right? Like there's
Not at
no
all.
new space. You cannot, and I was having this conversation yesterday that ties into this of like, when you just always argue with the same person because you think you already know what they're about to say, and so you have it be like, no, you're wrong, and it's not even what they're going to say, right? And it's like one of those things of like, you need to stop your listening of what you think how people are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that ties into it. Like you allowed people to speak freely and be like, well, this is how it occurred for me. And it gave you a different insight, and it
Yep.
gave you a new relationship. So thank you, because that's something that I think people forget, especially when they're in trauma. Like our world is in trauma right now. And,
Yes.
we need to realize that it's not personal, and it's something that we can, with conversation, we could definitely overcome.
Absolutely. Everything begins and ends with proper communication. That's why we have been, on this journey that communication is key. When people shut down or they shut out, or again, they hold in grief, they hold in disappointment. I'm not saying be a jerk about it by any means. If you hurt me or something is done against me, I should be able to talk to you about it in a very tactful manner. That's accepted.
Absolutely.
And it shouldn't be that you shut me down or you try to disprove how I'm feeling, because my emotions and how I feel is not up for debate.
Right.
But what is up for debate is, once I say what I have to say, you say what you have to say, and then, whether or not we're going to move forward together or we're going to part ways and just say, okay, the season is over. It's okay. But at least, I've shown you respect. You've shown me respect. And then to tie it in just from a grieving standpoint with, people that are going through cancer survivors, cancer warriors, it's just, you have to get your emotions and your feelings out. It's so important. I don't care if you're interacting with your children, with your business partner. Every relationship will require you to be able to talk, to conversate, to converse, to communicate, in order for that relationship or that business, that partnership to flourish. It just doesn't happen without it. Bottom line.
Absolutely. And sometimes that means having the difficult conversations.
Every time it means having the
Right?
difficult conversation. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a community advocate, I'm a friend. you know, Difficult conversations are just like me putting on my pants every day. At some point, yeah, you do. You have, you're going to have issues and you're going to have situations and scenarios every single day. Some are just more heightened, I believe, than others. And in the case with, with my mom, with me being able to allow how I felt, to be able to talk about it. And I just want to say this really quickly too. The hospice team was very, very instrumental with helping me after the death of my mother. I can't take all the credit and meditation and affirmation, because one thing, I don't know about where you're at or in different states, but for here, where I'm in Georgia, they allowed me to have 2 years of free hospice counseling.
Oh, I love
So
that.
after my mother died, me being able to talk and share certain things, and I actually did that in conjunction with my amazing pastor here. That was, my church home here. So I combated both ends. I got the world, the earthly point of view from it, and I got a spiritual point of view.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what I knew, Lori, was that I needed help, and I knew that I needed to unpack. I needed to unmask, unlayer. I needed to just really make a shift and make a change if I was going to shine bright, because the world truly does need my light. It needs your light. It needs, everybody's light, especially like you mentioned, in a time, like what we're going through right now, from pandemic to civil unrest to senseless killings. I mean, you name it. But those are things that are always going to be, like, as long as you have people that are of various backgrounds, various beliefs, whatever the case is, you're always going to have turmoil.
Mhm.
It's all in how you react and how you respond to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up a good point. So I am 3 years out, and a lot of things that I couldn't deal with at the time or talk about or really acknowledge for myself, or maybe even be aware of,
Mhm.
didn't come up until now, right? So like, when you're in the process of going through treatments and just kind of realizing where this is going to lead, it's one of those things of like, you're just going through the motions, and the emotional part catches up a little bit later. So I think it's absolutely amazing, and I commend the hospice care to be able to allow you to go there for 2 more years. And that's something that I'm going to definitely share with my community, let them know that that's a resource for them, because I've never realized that. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people, may not know that that's an option for them. And it's
Mhm.
so important. It's so important,
It is.
because
And I think too, just getting the different eyes, or I'm sorry, the different perspective, the different ears on me being able to articulate how I felt and
Mhm.
how I was feeling at that particular time. Um, it just helped me tremendously. And not only that, I now, knowing what I know now, I think it's very important that you jump on things very early.
Yeah.
So had I not unpacked, had I not spoken about certain things, because I think we suppress it. I call it the superwoman and the superman syndrome. Don't talk about your feelings, just kind of
Mhm.
hide them and move along, you
Mhm.
know. But one thing we all have to remember is, and even if the hospice team isn't available, or the time period has expired or whatever, and I tell my mentees and I tell my very, very close friends this all the time: superwoman and superman has super friends. So you also have to allow people, to be able to help you in certain situations, to get your feelings out, to get your emotions out, because that's all a part, I believe, of the shifting process.
Absolutely. 100%. You can't go through anything, you can't go through life alone,
Nope.
regardless of if it's a happy experience or a not so positive experience.
Hmm.
Like, we're in it together, and
Absolutely.
we are a community based phenomenon,
Yep.
right? It's just like animals, right? Like, dogs are part of a pack. So it's
Yep.
the same. Like, we need each other. We can't do it alone.
Yep. No
So
man is an island.
it's true. It's true. So I truly am blessed to have you share your story. And how can people find you? Where can they find you?
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me on the show. It has truly been an honor. And,
The honor's mine.
even though it's been some time for, with my mother's death, I was just speaking to someone the other day and telling them that as I do these podcasts and these shows and I get an opportunity to tell more of my journey, it frees me even more. It's just amazing how that works. So thank you again
Thank
for
you.
this opportunity. I am on every social media platform known to man. You can Google Angela Marshall, Augusta, Georgia, or one of my most I guess biggest platforms is the story and life of an ex-NFL wife. So you can Google that. Also, my website is www.inotherwordsbystone.com. So I am available. I'm ready to connect, not just from a standpoint of people purchasing my books or products or my services. You know, people send me messages all the time. I respond, I link up with them, I connect, I send them to other, connectors to help out, because I believe in being a servant leader. So I'm here, I'm in service,
I love it. I love it. And the world needs you. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. And I hope to have you back if you're welcome here anytime. And you are truly a blessing for the world. Thank you for who you are.
Thank you. Thank you.